And Miss Speaker, you can start your talk now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveena ma'am. I'll take on from here. So I was into teaching for some time and for 8 years practically, and then I have moved on to curriculum development. And throughout my teaching experience, I have realized one thing, and that is planning. Okay, like when you enter your classroom, if you have a proper plan, you get a proper confidence. It helps you organize the classroom properly, be it your life or the classroom. If you plan properly, there will be very less chance to fail. So it says, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. This line that you can see on the screen, it says that planning is the most significant part of your life. And as a teacher, the moment we hear the word plan, the first thing that comes into your mind is lesson plan. Lesson plan is like the strategy uh, of how you want to teach in your classroom. Okay. Now, I remember my days as a teacher. I used to feel lesson plan is just filling the templates and moving into a new, just filling in the templates, submitting it to the HOD, and just finishing off your task. Later on, I realized, especially in the part 2020, when corona situation happened, I realized lesson plan actually is one of the most, in fact, it is the most integral part of teaching. And it helps you in a way that nobody can imagine, right? So moving on to the definition. So what actually is lesson plan? So lesson plan, as Otis Krigel says, it's like a living document. It's not set in a stone, and that means it doesn't mean that you can't change it. Whatever is your plan, you have to just follow it doesn't say that. It actually says that you can modify according to the requirements in the classroom. So it is rather a guide that helps, that keeps you, that is the classroom practitioner, thinking about what you are teaching. Okay, so when you are aware that it is just a strategy and you have to follow the strategies to achieve what you require from your classroom, from the students, it really helps you achieving your target. Now, all throughout, I have been telling you the benefits of having a lesson plan. So few more, like gives you a confidence. It helps you manage your time effectively. And sometimes as a teacher, when you have to take a leave all of a sudden, that at that moment, the substitute teacher who fills you up instead of just doing some random stuff can carry over your work if you have a proper lesson plan, a detailed lesson plan. It's a document of your progress, how, like, you know what to teach in the next class and you know how much you have achieved, so you are tracking your progress through this document. And the next part, which says like align with learning standards, it means basically, it says that, I want to quote here, like each lesson has an objective of its own. It also fits into a much larger landscape of national, state, or school standards that dictate what students need to learn in each grade and subject. Lesson plan helps you achieve that. So you are aligning your concept, your topic, with the learning standards of the government, of the learning standards of the state or your school. Okay. Now, moving on, everything, in fact, our life is also a cycle, right? So this learning is also a cycle, not only in the learning place, but also when I work in this educational app, I see this is a cycle. Like, what are your expected outcomes, you accordingly you strategize, then you evaluate your work, and then you revise it according to the result of the evaluation. Okay, same goes with the learning cycle. Even the lesson plan that we are going to learn how to do it properly in a scientific manner works in this cycle. You are planning, you are writing down the expected outcomes, you are writing down how to achieve those outcomes. Then after achieving those outcomes, whether how many of your students have learned it, you or how many of your students need a push, how many of your students need, okay, you can go now, you're ready to fly. And then accordingly, you revise whether this concept needs a revision or you can move on to the next topic. So this learning cycle is one of the most essential part when you are formulating your lesson plan. So one of the few major components of lesson plan are, I will come into the detail of each components one by one. The first one is learning objective, then the anticipatory set, then the instructional strategies and activities, materials and resources, assessment and evaluation, closure and reflection. Okay. Now, what are learning objectives? When you are as a teacher, when you are planning your topic, you should be properly aware what is the topic of the lesson. If suppose you are teaching equation in maths, you should be aware that whether you are teaching linear equation, whether you are teaching quadratic equation, or what exactly, you should be thorough about it. You just can't randomly enter into the class and just say you are going to teach equation. You have to be specific about it. What do you want your students to learn from that? What do you want them to understand and be able to do at the end of the class? And what do I want them to take away from this particular lesson? So these are the major fundamentals when you are writing your learning objectives. Now, learning objectives, while you are writing it, I have come across various vague verbs like know. Even I used to write those. Learners will be able to know or understand. Don't you think these verbs are quite vague? Due to this, educationalists, they have come across this rule, SMART rule. What is this? The SMART rule is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, how do you write an objective using the SMART rule? I'll just show you an example. The first example is students will be able to understand quadratic equations. Fine. But when you're saying 80% of the students will be able to solve quadratic equation by following the elimination method at the end of the period and assessed using a 5 MCQ multiple choice questions. Okay, so you are being specific. What is your target? That 80% of the students, as a teacher, we all know in a classroom of 40 kids, you cannot expect that 40 kids will understand what you are teaching, right? So you are giving, your target is set that at least 80% will understand. Now, what you are trying to do, they're solving quadratic equations. Okay, there are various methods of solving quadratic equation. One of them is elimination method. So you're specifying, okay, and then you are also saying when at the end of the period. So if it's a 35 minutes period, by the end of 35 minutes they will be able to solve 5 MCQs, and that will give you what your understanding that yes, my kids have understood. Okay, so the SMART, when you are writing an objective using the SMART rule, it gives not only a clarity to you, but whoever is reading your lesson plan, it gives a clarity exactly what you want. Okay, now when I talk about objective, I'm pretty sure if you are a teacher and if you are listening to it, then Bloom, the name Bloom is enough, right? So Bloom's taxonomy is the word actually. So who pioneered it? It was Benjamin Bloom in 1956. Okay, he pioneered this taxonomy of educational objectives. He was a renowned American educationist, and he, as I said, he actually pioneered the taxonomy of educational objectives. Okay, and what is that basically? Okay, now according to him, in fact, even now, when we see that our schools and organizations promise a holistic development. Now, what is holistic development? To me, it is a development in the brain, a progress in the brain, in your physical activities and in your heart. So when you are teaching a concept, just understanding it and solving 5 MCQs is not enough. You will have to check through your concept, how can you imbibe in them uh, your the other qualities, the affective qualities, the psychomotor qualities. Okay, now accordingly, uh, Benjamin Bloom told that there are 3 domains of learning: the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Okay, now see, so if you see, his entire thing is like the chain, the food chain. It's like a pyramid from the LOTS, that is the lower order thinking skills, to the higher order thinking skills, from remember to create. Okay, remember is just knowledge, then you understand it, comprehension, then you are applying it, analyzing it, evaluating it, and then creating. The word create is devoid of any imitation. That is, it is something of your own, your original. Same way, there are classifications in the affective domain and psychomotor domain too. Okay, so this domain, the 3 domains of Bloom's taxonomy, requires a separate session. Okay, I'm just giving you a teeny tiny idea about what are they basically. So this was implemented in 1956. Okay, now we know the age, the time is changing, and in around 2001, okay, it was Andrew Churches, who updated this Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, in 2001. From 1956 to 2001, what was the change? The change was from what, okay, changed to how. Okay, what is the concept to how you learn the concept, how you understand the concept. Okay, so change in the verb form. Okay, initially it was just enough to write, learners will be able to know, learners will be able to understand, but now you have to specify exactly what, how will they know. They will define, they will list, or uh, they will elaborate, they will explain. Okay, so when you are using the verb form, you are actually sufficing to the needs of the 21st century digital skills. Okay, now the objective part, I hope it is clear to all of you. So it is one of the most, in fact, it is the integral part, and you are following the SMART rule here and also following the Bloom's taxonomy revised version in 2001. Okay, then the next one, if you remember, was the anticipatory set. Now, what anticipatory set? You know, it's very difficult. When I was teaching in 2020, when the first time the Corona situation happened, and I realized that, oh my God, just coming into the class, open your textbook, it's not enough. You have to grab the attention, grab the interest of your learner. Okay, and from a traditional method, okay, to a new style, I have to improvise that. I'm pretty sure many of our teachers does that. So now few of the times I have in my organization written scripts. Okay, so I have seen that in the script there is a part called hook. Hook is like how you attract the interest, grab the interest of the learners, and these learners, we have a very minimum span of attention. We can take only that few moments we give them, only that will tell us how much those learners will listen to us. Okay, so the first thing is, the second thing, the most important thing is setting up an interest. Okay, this is up to you teachers, how you do it, how you attract the attention. There is no fixed formula to it. Like, you can attract attention in any way you want. Okay, provided you follow the rules and regulations of your organization. Next comes the instructional strategies. Instructional strategies is, again, like Bloom's taxonomy. It's a vast field. Okay, I'll come to it one by one. The important ones I will try to cover up. The first thing about instructional strategies is how you will present your concept to your learners. Okay, and and it's a 21st century classroom. Okay, it's an inclusive classroom. So everyone in the classroom is different. Okay, everyone's way of grabbing of understanding a concept is very different from the other. Okay, so different learning styles is there. In that case, our lesson plan, okay, it's totally, it's how you take the class. It shows how you understand your lesson plan, shows how you understand your classroom. Okay, so basically there are different instructional strategies. The first one, okay, here the teaching methods. I if I start explaining all of them, it will take time, but then I will come to the important ones. The first one is a flipped classroom. The classroom is a very interesting one. How you suppose you want to teach your learner about the judiciary system of India. Okay, now you come into the class, okay, and you just write on a topic, okay, on the board, or if you are taking an online classroom, you write it down in your whiteboard, like, uh, do you think the Indian judiciary system should be independent or not? Okay, and throw this topic and divide your classroom into for and against. Okay, tell them to do their research, come back to the classroom next day and see how much enthusiastically they have done their research and they're eager to present it in the classroom. Debate is one of the most what to say, it's one of the most interesting way to grab the interest of your learners, you know. So when you see that the learners are engaged, involved in what you are doing, your your work is half done. Like, you don't have to invest more time in explaining, introducing, telling this is what I'm going to teach you today. The learners have already got an idea what you are trying to achieve. Okay, so flipped classroom is one of the interesting ways. So where the teacher comes, gives the learners the entire authority to do their research, come back, and accordingly you derive the concept from their research. Okay, then the next thing about that is kinesthetic learning. Kinesthetic learning is also it's like if you're if you are teaching your learners how to ride a bicycle. Okay, so that is also one way of that is also one example of kinesthetic learning. So you can't show your learner that, okay, see, you have to put on the paddle on the left side and then on the right and then left. The learners do it on their own. You just have to be there as a backup to provide them and tell them that you become their confidant. Okay, next is a few more are there. Just say, for example, this personalized learning again, you know. I was writing the script for this NCRT topic from this NCRT book, and there was this concept, beautiful concept on sign language, you know. And since our classroom is classroom is inclusive, I have often seen as a teacher we tend to what to say, we tend to not get more into the detail of everything. Okay, you see that we just read the textbook, we'll explain the text whatever it is, explain the exercise, and just move on. Okay, and but there are few things. The sign language part was given into a very short did you know, like that, in a small tablet or a small form. Okay, and most of us might have ignored it, but then I found that's a very interesting way of showing that how we are trying to include the learners. They were, the sign letters were showing that how to write A, how to write B, and how these letters are actually in sync with the alphabets of English language. So you can take that help, and you can customize learning. Okay, and there will be learners who do not understand say, for example, on history, he finds history boring. Okay, you can take the help of other subjects. Okay, like, say, for example, maths. Okay, in making him or her understand a history concept. Okay, let's say, for example, the Venn diagram. Okay, like you can take the Venn diagram to show how Akbar's life, okay, the childhood part and then the adult part, how, what did he do, how did he transform from the childhood part to adult part, how did he transform himself. You can integrate two subjects and you can provide that personalized learning. Then obviously comes the next one, is also a very interesting way. It's called the expeditionary learning. What is it basically? The expeditionary learning is basically this one. Okay, so what it says ki you do, okay, suppose you want to teach mountain, okay, in your classroom, you come across this activity of volcano. Okay, the students bring all the try to bring all the materials, very easy materials. They need soda water and some colors and etc. And then just they create a volcano, and as the lavas pile up, the structure they take is like kind of a mountain. So they are experiencing it through an activity. They are reflecting upon it. Okay, so these lavas, some of the mountains, not all, some of the mountains are made up of these lavas, and then you are coming to the conclusion, okay, this is how mountains are formed. Okay, so these are the various ways you can strategize your learning. Okay, now some indirect instructions, there are many. Okay, I'll give examples of few. For example, the KWL. Okay, the first one, K, is what you know, what you want to know, and what you have learned. I'll give you an example through this. So you want to teach about recycling. So they already know what are recycling bins, how to reuse something again, and what are the things. And then they are writing what they want to know in this classroom. And after that thing is over, you're learning what they have. After your session is over, you're writing what they have learned. So KWL is another strategy you can implement in your classroom. That way, just opening your textbook, turn to page number 56. From there to this KWL method is actually help you as well. You will know what your learners have learned. That way you can also have your own feedback, own closure. Okay, about feedback and closure, I will give a little bit of more explanation. So another is games. So gamified learning is also one interesting way where you know, I used to do this. I used to tell them, they often I used to get this, ma'am, we want to play quiz and this, that. Okay, so if you want to play quiz, then let's do one thing. You only frame questions, what you want to ask your opponent team. So I used to break them into two groups. So they used to make, every child used to make 5 questions, and they used to decide how much marks, how much points for each question. Okay, so these are simple games you can take in. This is just an example. You can invent. I know there are so many creative teachers, so teachers can gamify their learning in their own manner. Okay, so these are few. Then brainstorming, the concept mapping. These all are very innovative. I won't say these are very innovative. I will say that we normally don't tend to implement it in the classroom. You know, we often fail to implement it because we take certain things for granted, I suppose. Okay, but yeah, I also accept that in a 35 minutes period, it's not always possible to implement these strategies, but I expect at least few of the concepts, few of the hard concepts, okay, where you know that the students need little more emphasis, you can implement these creative strategies. Then as I said, why differentiated instruction? It's mostly because it's a 21st century classroom and it's an inclusive classroom. Children have different needs, they come from different educational backgrounds, different attention span and interest, having different language abilities, different cultural backgrounds. These all should motivate you to make a lesson plan that cater to the need of the classroom, each and every, whoever is present in the classroom, for each and every one. Okay, so I know this is the month of March, and I know you will all those who are listening from Bangalore, from April and May, you will have 2 months of time. If we can invest the 2 months time to make a constructive lesson plan for the topics, okay, that we are going to teach in the next session, it will really benefit us in the later time. It will make you feel productive, and it will make you feel, yes, you have achieved something. Then after you are done with this, you can also provide with some independent activities.
Sorry to interrupt you, Miss Priyata. We are running out of time and I have some questions lined up here.
Okay, I'll just quickly wind up then.
Sure.
Independent activities, those guided activities I have told, and independent activities you can give some lesson and homework. Okay, materials and resources, these are your own for your own use. Assessment, obviously there are two kinds, formative and summative, but when you are teaching a small concept, okay, when there is you're not going for formative or summative, try to formulate few of the worksheets which are tied to the learning objective. Okay, that will help. The most important part is making an evaluation, telling them that, listen, if this is the activity, these are my expectations from you. That rubric shows your expectation, and the students get a clarity, and accordingly they can prepare themselves. Okay, so rubric is one of the most essential part while you are formulating your assessment and evaluation. And also the closure and reflection part. The reflective thinking, closure is basically you are summarizing it. Summary is very, 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 very important in your classroom. And the reflection part is for yourself. You know, what are the evidences that you have taught, you have achieved the learning outcome, and what are the adjustments that you have made to achieve those learning objectives? These are your reflective questions. Okay, and this is just a sample of the lesson plan. If you want to see it, you can go through it, you can contact me. And that's it for me today. I know I have spoken at.
Thank you, Ms. Priyata. It was a very informative session. I have questions here. Mr. Rauf wants to know, how much do you think that the competencies of a particular concept while preparing lesson plan is important?
Competencies are important to achieve the outcomes, because if you're giving a concept, okay, and you are just randomly saying this, they are so diversified. So if you are teaching nouns in grade 1, okay, and you are teaching nouns in grade 8, okay, there's a difference, right? So competencies help you understand what to expect from a grade 1 child and what to expect from a grade 8 child when you are teaching now. So competencies can help you that way.
Okay, another question goes like this: what makes a good mini lesson?
A mini lesson should be mini lesson or lesson plan?
It says mini lesson.
Okay. So a mini lesson obviously should have the, if you are talking about mini lesson plan, I will say, but I don't know what exactly should have a mini lesson.
Maybe mini lesson plan itself.
Yeah. So mini lesson plan should have that objective, the expected objectives and outcomes, and obviously the methodology you are expecting. Okay, like it should have a proper methodology, like what are the, if you are introducing a flipped classroom or an direct instructions, all these should be there. You can then you can avoid this assignment and closure and reflection part in that case.
Yeah, if you stop sharing your screen, we can see your full video face. Okay, great. So another question goes like this: who has most influenced you to become an educator?
My favorite teacher, actually, she is my primary section and high school teacher, Shilpi Datta ma'am.
Okay. Your profile on LinkedIn, it talks about curriculum designing. How did you get into curriculum designing?
2020 and the corona situation has played a major role over there. So I felt a little bit of change in my domain. I was a bit saturated teaching, because I felt there is nothing more I could give, because I have gained a lot of experience and I can understand children's psychology better. So designing a curriculum for them will help me implement whatever experience I have gathered. So I thought of shifting to curriculum designing.
Great to know. And last question, ma'am. How do you teach students to ask questions?
That is one important thing, you know. So in the closure and reflection part, you know, the closure part, I told that exit tickets, okay, there will be students in your classroom who will really hesitate to ask questions to you. Maybe there will be mental blockages, peer pressures, and there will, what if I ask this question? So you can do one thing, those, you can make 3 boxes, okay, like, or you can just tell them you can ask your questions in an anonymous manner. Yeah, they can write down their questions, hand over the chip to you before they leave the classroom, and that will help them sort their questions, understand their questions, and also that will give them a confidence, you know. So, and this is one way I have tried, and I have seen that later on students used to write their names but used to say, ma'am, please don't tell to anybody that I have asked. So this way you can, if you become their confidant, I think students will ask you questions.
Good to know, ma'am. So now we have completed the round of questions. On behalf of School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com, we like to thank you and for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions. I like to also thank the participants in the meeting, and we'll be closing the meeting now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.